Hello and welcome to Network News. Today we're talking about the government's long-awaited spending review, which sets out their ambitions for the next few years, looking specifically at what it means for transport. Unfortunately, there's still a few questions it leaves unanswered, but there's also a lot to be learned from it, so let's discuss exactly what's been confirmed. In her address to the House of Commons, Chancellor of the Exchequer Rachel Reeves outlined a number of plans for transport investment, so for the sake of ease, let's go through them in the same order she did. To start off with, she announced £15.6 billion worth of investment for urban transport systems outside of London, as part of the second round of the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement. This had actually been announced already a few days prior to the spending review, but it's good that it's been reconfirmed. The exact details of what all the money will be spent on still need to be largely confirmed, but there is quite a lot that's been announced already. In the West Midlands, the funding will be spent on an extension of the Midland Metro Tram system to a new sports quarter at Bordesley Green, where plans are emerging for a new 60,000-seat stadium to serve Birmingham City FC. This is part of the broader East Side Metro extension project, which hopes to one day build a tram route all the way out to Birmingham Airport and the future HS2 interchange station. In West Yorkshire, the money is to be spent on the West Yorkshire Mass Transit, a plan to create two new tram lines as part of its first phase, one running between Leeds and Bradford, and the other running through Leeds from St James's University Hospital through the city centre to the White Rose Shopping Centre. Other planned transit investments include new bus stations in Bradford and Wakefield, bus and bike lanes, and the establishment of the Weaver network, which will franchise buses and unify branding and ticketing across modes, a lot like the B network on the other side of the Pennines. Speaking of which, Greater Manchester is also planning various expansions of its tram systems, with new stops planned in Bury, North Manchester and Oldham, as well as an extension to Stockport and a new service linking Oldham, Rochdale, Haywood and Bury together using tram trains, utilising infrastructure from both Network Rail and the East Lancashire Heritage Railway. I look forward to seeing how they manage that. Also included in Greater Manchester's plans are the introduction of 1,000 new electric buses so that the B network will be fully electrified by 2030, as well as the construction of new transport interchanges. Moving on to South Yorkshire, £530 million will go towards renewing the tram network with new vehicles, modernised stops and enhanced maintenance to improve reliability. £350 million will go towards franchising buses, with Sheffield, Doncaster and Rotherham being taken over by 2027 and the rest of South Yorkshire by 2029. In Liverpool, 3 new stations will be built at Car Hill, Woodchurch and Daresbury, and £100 million will go towards setting up bus rapid transit routes to Anfield, Everton Stadium and Liverpool John Lennon Airport. There's also plans for a new fleet of electric buses to support the city's ongoing efforts to franchise its buses by 2027. The North East Combined Authority has confirmed its flagship project for an extension of the Tyne and Wear Metro to Washington, which is currently the 4th largest town in England not connected to the rail network. This 13-kilometre extension will include 3 new stations at Follingsby, Washington North and Washington South and utilises former railway alignments. It will link to Peelaw at one end and South Hilton on the other, meaning that the line to Sunderland will now be a proper loop. Additionally, it lays the groundwork for potential further expansion of the rail network southwards along the former Leamside line. As well as this, the money will help pay for bus franchising and integrated ticketing as part of the new Angel network, accessibility and safety improvements to stations and bus stops, bus priority measures and hundreds of new EV charging points. In the west of England, £150 million will go towards improving rail infrastructure in Bristol, allowing a 4 train per hour service frequency between the new station at Brabazon and Bristol Temple Meads. £200 million will go towards improving and expanding bus services, including a new electric fleet and the associated charging infrastructure. And another £200 million will be used to develop plans for mass transit across Bristol, Bath, South Gloucestershire and North Somerset, with various modes being considered, including guided buses, trams, tram trains, heavy rail, light rail, etc. Tees Valley was allocated about £1 billion, with £60 million going towards a new Platform 3 at Middlesbrough Station to boost capacity, and there will also be a new station at Teesside Park. Gauging work is expected to be carried out between Eaglescliffe and North Allerton, so that the line can carry freight trains, and there's also plans for an autonomous tram system throughout Middlesbrough, though the exact details on this seem to be lacking at this stage. As well as this, the money will go towards funding bus improvements and various road upgrades. Finally, a new mass rapid transit system is planned in the East Midlands to run along the Trent Arc corridor between Derby and Nottingham, with additional improvements expected to road, rail and bus networks too. There had previously been plans for a tram line between Derby and Nottingham, which would have intersected with the planned HS2 station at Towton. Hopefully any new route would follow roughly the same plans, so that interchange could be provided in the admittedly unlikely event that this section of HS2 is ever resurrected. Now there's quite a lot of projects listed there, and each one will probably be deserving of a video in its own right as more detailed plans emerge, so make sure you're subscribed so I can give you any major updates on them. Additionally, I'm sure that various infrastructure-focused YouTubers, such as Rail Focus, will be making construction updates on them as they take shape over the next few years. Moving on from the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlements, let's talk about the other transport funding that was confirmed in the spending review, again in the order she announced them. The next project she confirmed backing for is the reopening of Doncaster Sheffield Airport, which is questionable to say the least, considering the inevitable climate impact it will have, combined with the fact that smaller regional airports such as this often require high public subsidy just to stay operational. After this, she went on to confirm £2.2 billion for a 4-year funding settlement for TfL's Capital Renewals programme. TfL has said the money will help them complete the introduction of new trains on the Piccadilly line and DLR, introduce new signalling on 40% of the tube, procure a new tram fleet, and progress discussions on the new Bakerloo line trains, as well as working on renewing London's roads, tunnels and flyovers. Notably, there's no commitment to some of the projects TfL have been championing, such as the Bakerloo line extension to Hayes or DLR extension to Thamesmead, which has received criticism from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Now, let's talk about the commitments made towards rail investment, which is what I suspect many of you are here for. Unfortunately, many of the juicy details are lacking at this stage, and we won't know exactly what's planned until the 10-year infrastructure strategy is published at some point in the coming weeks. However, we can discuss the projects she confirmed in her speech to the House of Commons. The first of these was reaffirming the government's commitment to the Transpennine route upgrade, with a further £3.5 billion allocated to this programme, which will see the Transpennine mainline electrified and highly upgraded between Manchester and York, providing increased capacity and reduced journey times. Next, and probably most excitingly out of all the announcements, she confirmed the government's intention to, quote, take forward plans for Northern Powerhouse Rail. Again, the exact details on what form this will take will be revealed in the coming weeks, but here's what we know so far. At present, the core section of Northern Powerhouse Rail consists of a new railway between Liverpool Lime Street and Manchester Piccadilly, with intermediate stations planned at Liverpool Gateway, Warrington Bank Quay and Manchester Airport. It's designed to provide much the same benefits as HS2, namely increasing capacity for both intercity and local trains, and reducing journey times between Liverpool and Manchester to around half an hour. Interestingly, much of this route had been planning to share infrastructure with HS2 between Manchester Piccadilly and Manchester Airport. This section includes an 8-mile-long tunnel, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, will be very expensive. Indeed, a recent Freedom of Information request showed that if it's only ever going to be used by East-West Northern Powerhouse rail services, it won't actually be able to pay for itself, as without the additional North-South services from HS2, or whatever scheme ends up replacing it, its cost-benefit ratio would only be 0.4, meaning that for every £1 spent, it would only generate 40p's worth of economic return. Now, cost-benefit ratios are a flawed way of measuring the benefits of transport investment, but this could still present a serious barrier to the line being built, and suggests that either the government is considering some sort of revival of HS2, such as the Midlands-North Rail link, or that the scheme will be quietly dropped in the future as the business case won't support it by itself. Hopefully all will be revealed in the forthcoming infrastructure strategy. However, it is worth noting that no money has been committed to actually building the line at this stage. Other things included in the Northern Powerhouse Rail programme could include a new line between Huddersfield and Bradford, but again, we'll have to wait for the infrastructure review before that is confirmed one way or the other. Moving on, the Chancellor then confirmed an extra £2.5 billion towards the delivery of East-West Rail, the planned new railway linking Oxford and Cambridge via Bicester, Bletchley and Bedford. The first phase of East-West Rail is set to open later this year between Bicester and Bletchley, which will allow for a new direct service between Oxford and Milton Keynes. This funding allocation will mean it's able to continue work on the subsequent phases of the project, which includes upgrades to the Marston Vale line between Bletchley and Bedford, as well as a new build line between Bedford and Cambridge. Following this, she announced funding for the Midlands Rail Hub, a £1.75 billion plan to boost rail capacity in central Birmingham by diverting trains away from Birmingham New Street and instead into an expanded Moore Street station through the construction of 2 new chords in Bawdsley. The West Chord would allow trains to access Moor Street from Wales and the south-west, whilst the East Chord would create a link between Moor Street and lines heading towards the East Midlands and onwards towards the north-east. By diverting trains away from Birmingham New Street, both for cross-country routes and the Camp Hill line, which is currently in the process of being reopened, it means that other services can be boosted. For example, it would enable services on the Cross-City line to be increased from 4 trains per hour to 6 trains per hour. It's unclear exactly how much money has been committed to the Midlands Rail Hub in the spending review, but the Treasury has said it's prioritising the Western Chord link as this would address the biggest capacity issues and is the most advanced in terms of its design. The final announcement for rail investment was a commitment to spend £445 million on rail in Wales over the next 10 years. This doesn't seem like a lot of money for an area the size of Wales to spend across an entire decade, but nonetheless it should help deliver schemes such as improvements to Cardiff West Junction and a series of new stations between Cardiff and the Severn Tunnel, as set out in the so-called Burns Review, which was set up to investigate alternatives to the M4 Relief Road. As well as this, the funding will help pay for the ongoing upgrade of the Core Valley lines as part of the South Wales Metro, upgrades to level crossings along the North Wales Main Line, and the construction of new sidings at Padeswood to boost freight and passenger capacity, which should help allow for a twice-hourly service to operate along the Borderlands line between Wrexham and Bidston. Other projects that received funding but weren't explicitly mentioned in the Chancellor's speech include £240 million to enhance capacity at Leeds Station, new stations in Wellington and Columpton, and extending the £3 bus fare cap until March 2027. It's also worth noting that £25 billion has been committed to the ongoing construction of HS2 between London and Birmingham, but this isn't exactly anything new. Well, there's a lot of projects listed there, which is really good to see. The main beneficiaries seem to be the devolved city regions, who will now be able to embark on some pretty significant expansions of their mass transit networks. Combined with our ambitions to franchise bus services and possible future ability to take control of rail services too, as set out in the government's nationalisation plans, this means that the quality of transport provided in urban areas outside of London could see a dramatic increase in the next few years. Of course, there's far more that we can and should be doing, but this is still a welcome step in the right direction. Moving on to rail, and the projects announced sound quite exciting. However, if you actually look into it, there's very little new money that's actually been announced. The only thing that really sticks out is the £445 million allocated to Wales, only about £300 million of which is actually new, and has to be spread over the course of 10 years, meaning £30 million a year, which is an almost insultingly low amount of money for a nation the size of Wales. Looking ahead to the 10-year infrastructure strategy to be released in the coming weeks, and it sounds like the headline items will be East West Rail, Northern Powerhouse Rail, and the Midlands Rail Hub. This continues to leave a massive question mark over what will happen with HS2 north of Handsacre, where high-speed trains are currently set to join the existing West Coast Main Line, but due to being shorter than the current Pendolinos, this will actually see a reduction in seating capacity of 17%. It also raises questions over Northern Powerhouse Rail, because, as discussed earlier, the expensive tunnel into Manchester simply won't be able to support its own costs if it's only going to be used by east-west traffic. So without something like the Midlands-North-West rail link between Handsacre and Manchester Airport, I wouldn't be surprised if that line ends up getting killed off. Not delivering these lines, both north-south and east-west, would mean that key urban areas such as Birmingham, Manchester and Liverpool would never meaningfully be able to increase their suburban rail services to levels similar to those seen in London. I do have some hope that a plan is in place though, after Shamit Geiger revealed in an interview with Green Signals that the West Coast Partnership and High Speed Integration Group have a pragmatic plan in place which will resolve the capacity issues until 2040 and allow for 9 high-speed trains an hour to pass through Handsacre. This is welcome news if true, and I look forward to finding out what they've got planned, but considering HS2 is opening in the 2030s, it'll only last about 10 years before a more permanent solution is needed, again showing that the only long-term solution to the capacity problems on the West Coast Main Line is through proper high-speed segregation with a new railway. This leads me neatly onto my next point, that although a 10-year infrastructure plan is welcome, for railway projects of this scale, we really need to be thinking longer term and creating 50 or even 100-year infrastructure plans so that we can really plan ahead for the long term and create the certainty in the construction industry needed to avoid many of the same mistakes made on HS2, where uncertainty created additional costs from within the supply chain. There's also no news on electrification, at least outside of the Transpennine route upgrade, so unless that's also included in the infrastructure review, it seems a pretty major omission. So clearly there's more we can be doing. But despite all this, there's undeniably some good projects going ahead here. Let's just hope they don't end up getting cancelled as well. What are your thoughts on the Spending Review's transport announcements? Are they an important next step towards building a better Britain? Or do they fail to miss the mark? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe to Network News for more updates like this, including an analysis of the infrastructure strategy when it gets released in the coming weeks. Also, let me know if I missed anything. I tried to cover all the schemes in as much detail as I reasonably could, but with so many announcements made at once, it's possible that I missed a few. But other than that, until next time, all it remains for me to say is thanks for watching.